Dave just couldn't get better. He died at a local hospital at the age of 73. Dave was our captain, navigator, and moral compass for more than 47 years. We will devote a large portion of this newscast, if you will let us, to Dave and his life, and ask you to join us for a half-hour special following the 10 p.m. news. We begin now with a look back at Dave's long and distinguished career. David Dalrymple Moore. Everyone called him Dave. It's no exaggeration to say that Dave has influenced more Minnesotans than any other person in our state's history, informing and inspiring whole generations.
He's inspired so many young journalists. I mean, Trish Van Pilsum, Cindy Hilger, myself, and many, many others that I'll never know about to get into the business because of the standards he set so long ago and for so many years.
Born and raised in Minneapolis, high school at Washburn, Dave went to the University of Minnesota after World War II to study theater.
The guy could have been anything he wanted to be. He could have been a star on the stage, in movies. He was a star in television. When you talk about the heavy hitters in this market, Dave Moore was number one.
He started in radio in Michigan. Then he applied at a fledgling television station. And he got the job.
I met him in 1950. It was in the lobby of then WTCN TV, and soon to become WCCO TV. 1950, and we had both been in the Army. We were fairly newly married.
Television and Dave's career were both in their infancy.
Dave was doing like bowling for dollars, and I don't think too happy in Channel 4. I said, Dave, how'd you like to be my partner in the morning? He says, fabulous. If you'd called 2 days earlier. I said, what's 2 days earlier? He said, little secret. I'm going to start doing the 10 o'clock news here.
Now, the Dave Moore News.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight's news is headlined by the crash of an Air Force B-52 jet bomber on the August...
Dave became 10 p.m. newscaster only because a guy named Walter Cronkite turned it down.
And there was the weather. No big blizzards up here in the icebox this year.
With his acting background, Dave created TV roles no one else could have.
I'm going to tell you a story about the poor, the tradition of giving.
Sing ho for the life of a bear. Sing ho for the life of a bear.
I think he can probably tell the story better than I.
It
was just like magic. I'm running across the studio.
Well, Dave, teamed with weatherman Bud Kraling, blazed new trails for everyone.
We started what was called the Happy Talk, the bridge between the news story and the weather, labeled Happy Talk. And then he said later that he thinks that we set a curse on the entire industry by doing that.
Where do you get your weather from, Bud?
Well, a lot of it comes out of the West.
I mean, all those charts and graphs and instruments you use.
Oh, well, they don't mean very much. I usually call the Weather Bureau.
Return with us now to those thrilling years of yesterday, when a masked man, disguised as a mild-mannered newscaster for Channel 4, fights a never-ending battle to bring news, weather, and sports to the old Northwest.
And now the bedtime news with Dave Moore.
Dave may best be remembered for the bedtime news, a Saturday night satirical review of the news of the day.
Buy what? Buy the 3 free sheets. Well, if the 3 free sheets are free, why do you have to buy them? Don't buy them.
We can get in a lot of trouble taking all those politician statements out of context, running them all together like that.
It's ineffective, it's immoral, and it's unnecessary.
But that's just one man's opinion.
That was a bunch of hooey.
Oh, I don't get any comfort out of that, Snick.
If you think it's such a good idea, you do it. Okay, I will. You wait for me in the car. What you'll be seeing tonight is a television program about television.
But he also championed news as public service, as the anchor of a team producing more report documentaries.
30 hours a week for children, and that's the average. If you or your child don't watch that much, others are watching more.
And Dave truly was the anchor here, the backbone of the 10 and 6 p.m. newscasts. Set designs and co-anchors would come and go, but you could always count on Dave at the desk.
Dave is an institution, and he has set a standard in this business for all of us to follow and somehow try to emulate. Although I don't know that we'll ever be able to. But he set the high mark for everybody. And the market, this market, is such a good market because of Dave Moore.
The best of what journalism is, just compassionate telling of people's stories. And I sensed that even as a child. And I wouldn't even have considered, a job at another station.
Even after Dave stepped down from the anchor chair, he worked harder than most, toiling over the words and stories of his own weekly Week in Review program, More on Sunday.
Morning! A week ago today, just outside Zunbo Falls in the little old schoolhouse where she taught 70 years ago, Leona Davison, 90 years old, is marrying one of her former students, Wendell Buttermore, 80 years old.
But no matter how famous, how important Dave became, Dave never really believed it.
But he's got a wonderful sense of humor. You have to have a good sense of humor, and you have to not take yourself too seriously. Although I always thought Dave should take himself more seriously, because he certainly was, he's probably the best anchorman ever in this town, in this city. And yet I don't think he ever gave himself enough credit.
To the end, this humble man of many talents answered his own fan mail. We know he would have liked to have answered the thousands of good wishes written to him by you at the state fair and on the internet.
People would say to him when we were walking down the street, watch you all the time, Dave. Watch the 10 o'clock all the time. And he would say something about, don't you have anything better to do? Read a good book. Go to a play.
We'll miss you, Dave, old friend. This station, this town, will quite frankly never be the same. And it seems like just about everybody knew him.
We just stepped out the door tonight and we found viewers who remember watching him through the years. WCCO's Frederica Freiberg is here with that.
It is a sad assignment to relay the word that Dave is gone, but bittersweet because it brings a smile to hear what people say about it.
Very friendly with me. He was friendly with when he walked in here. He was always friendly with people. He said hello.
Angie is a longtime waitress at Peter's Grill in Minneapolis. She says Dave will be missed. Peter's was a favorite lunch spot for Dave. They say his menu picks were rhubarb pie and Friday's grilled cheese special.
I like him staying here, but I was surprised he didn't go national.
He was funny. I love that bedtime snooze or the bedtime news that he used to do. I just remember watching that. It was a big deal on the weekends to make sure that we were still up in the basement rec room watching that.
For so many viewers, Dave Moore was like part of the family.
We grew up with him. He was in the living room.
But he wasn't just behind a set. He was out in the community, spreading his incredible talent.
He was such a fantastic actor. He was so impressive and so comical and everything. He was great. Anyway, I just think he would, like you say, it's an end of an era. A wonderful man.
He is in a category all by himself.
That is certainly true. The man is a legend, and all of us who worked with him for however long feel honored for that chance.
You're right about that. Thanks, Fred.
Dave became so much a part of the fabric of our state's culture that tonight Governor Arne Carlson is pondering ways to pay appropriate tribute to a man the governor calls friend. WCCO's Trish Van Pilsum is just outside our studios now with more on that, Trish.
Hi, Don. I wanted to show everybody what we're calling kind of a memorial to Dave here at the studios. It's a simple but powerful M, lit from behind. It was designed by floor director Steve Richardson and was used as part of Dave's More on Sunday set. And we've moved it out here so everybody can see it and enjoy it and think about Dave. Now, the governor of Minnesota wants to create a real lasting memorial to Dave as well. He knows how much Dave loved the theater and the arts, and he'd like to try to name an arts center or arts festival in Dave's honor. And tonight, the governor called Dave Moore one of the best-known people in Minnesota in this century.
He was truly a wonderful person, and he was all Minnesota. He loved Minnesota, and he loved Minnesotans, and he really loved us, all of our quirks, all of our warts, and he understood his own peccadillos. He never presented himself as being above anybody, but he was a part of life and used television as a vehicle to bring his life and your life sort of together.
What did Minnesota lose today?
Oh, I think you're going to hear words like legend and irreplaceable. I would say I think we all lost a very dear friend.
The governor wondered whether Dave Moore could possibly have known what he meant to this state. And you know, I'm not sure that he did. And all I can do tonight is hope, pray, in fact, that somehow in the past 14 years, I conveyed in some small way what he meant to me. Don?
We all feel that way tonight, Trish. Thank you. A memorial scholarship fund has been set up at the University of Minnesota in Dave's honor. It is his alma mater, and it is a journalism scholarship, and that's important to say. If you would like to contribute to the memorial scholarship, you can send it to the University of Minnesota Foundation at Suite 200, 1300 South 2nd Street, Minneapolis, Minnesota 55454. The family is planning a private funeral with a public celebration of Dave's life sometime this spring.
There were a number of those who had the privilege of working with Dave Moore over the years. Many are still here at the station, but others have moved on, but certainly haven't forgotten.
This was a man with virtually no pretense. He knew exactly who he was. He used to wander around the newsroom saying, you know, you guys are the journalists. I just sit up there and read it.
You know, when you're anchoring, you're kind of always on your toes because you're going to be reading the next story or something. I always found myself kind of sinking back in my chair and just looking at him and relaxing and listening to the story and kind of forgetting what I was supposed to be doing because he was such a great storyteller.
He was a stickler for grammar. And, you know, he put more love of the language in me than anybody in my entire lifetime. I still write copy so that Dave, or try to write it, so that Dave Moore would approve of it today.
It was one of my first days at work. It was 6:30, we were leaving the office, walking to the parking ramp, and Dave Moore was ahead of me, and I thought, this guy must be driving a Cadillac Fleetwood or a Lincoln Continental. And before I could get to my car, up out of the bowels of the ramp came this beat-up old Chevy Corvair with a busted tail light, a dented fender, and a muffler going bad, and it was Dave Moore.
He earned the image as the most trusted anchorman in the history of Twin Cities television. In a sentence, Dave was so easy to love.
We hope you'll stay with us to share some of our favorite memories of Dave Moore and his gifts to all of us. We'll be airing a special tribute right after this newscast. That's at 10:35. And then tomorrow night, we'll have a 1-hour special remembering Dave and the role that he played in all of our lives. That's Thursday night at 7 o'clock.
I think Dave would be angry tonight if we didn't share a few of his lighter moments. His wit, his charm, his laugh, all made our lives so much brighter. From his earliest years in this infant business, Dave blazed trails none of us have dared to follow. Among them, an unparalleled sense of humor and timing, which made bedtime news so memorable.
As a Sealy employee for so long, I imagine you yourself sleep on a Sealy Posturepedic. Well, the truth of the matter is, it's kind of embarrassing now, you know, what with my job and all. I mean, I'm not much of a sleeper. I mean, it's kind of funny, but I just can't sleep. You're an insomniac. A what? I say you're an insomniac. No, I'm Catholic.
Because we leave you tonight with a disclaimer about those hideous, ghoulish billboards that are disfiguring parts
Long
of
after we journalists gave up doing commercials, Dave never lost his ability to laugh at himself, to poke fun at his craft.
My friends, these are not us. These are pictures of people who work on Channel 5.
And much as this business changed, like when our newsroom finally entered the computer age, Dave could have fun with his own foibles.
The Newsmaker Computer Company, creators of this system, sent 2 teachers here full-time for 2.5 weeks each to help initiate us poor computer illiterates. Most of my colleagues caught on quickly. Journalists are a quick study, you know. Unfortunately, I am still computer phobic, but willing to learn, even if it means the fear of leaving old friends behind.
It is so hard to leave old friends behind.